It was just another cold morning in the small mountain town of Ridge Valley, the kind of morning where the snow still clung to the peaks, sunlight slanted through the glass windows of the old diner, and the smell of bacon and coffee wrapped around every corner. Sarah had been working the early shift for months now, quiet, polite, never raising her voice, always greeting every customer with the same warm, nervous smile. No one knew much about her past, and that's exactly how she liked it. She was just a young woman trying to start over, far away from the chaos she'd left behind. But that morning, fate walked in wearing black leather. The doorbell above the diner jingled, and 3 men in heavy biker jackets swaggered in like they owned the place. The laughter, loud and hollow, cut through the calm hum of conversation. Sarah froze for a moment when she saw them, her heart quickening, not out of fear, but recognition of a kind. She'd grown up around men like them. She knew the smell of gasoline and smoke that followed them, the arrogance that lived in their eyes. Still, she put on that soft smile and took their order, her hands trembling slightly as she scribbled it down. But they weren't here for the food. As Sarah turned to pour coffee, one of the men smirked, whispering something crude to the other. Within minutes their jokes turned to taunts. The way they stared made her skin crawl, but she tried to ignore it. The diner was half full, but no one wanted trouble, not in a town where peace was fragile. She set their plates down, forcing her voice steady as she said, "Here you go, gentlemen." But as she turned to walk away, one of them grabbed her wrist. "Hey, sweetheart, don't walk off so fast," he said, grinning. "We're just having fun." Sarah's eyes darted around, searching for help, but the few customers who saw what was happening suddenly found their coffee cups very interesting. Fear started to twist in her chest. She tried to pull away, but another man stood up, blocking her path. His hand reached for her shirt, tugging it just enough to make her gasp. And then, in one cruel moment, the sound of fabric tearing filled the diner. The laughter that followed was sharp, cruel, echoing against the glass walls. Sarah's eyes welled up, her hands trembling as she tried to cover herself. Humiliation and shock hit her all at once, but underneath the tears there was something else burning, something deep and dangerous she hadn't felt in years. If you believe in kindness, courage, and second chances, pause for a second, hit the like button, and subscribe to Everyday Heroes. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the quietest people carry the loudest strength. The men didn't notice the door open behind them. 2 figures stepped in, the bell above the door ringing again, this time with a low metallic chime that somehow felt colder. They were older men, broad-shouldered, faces weathered by years of road dust and scars. Their vests were heavy with patches that told stories most would never understand. And on the back of each one, in bold white letters, Hell's Angels. The laughter in the diner stopped like someone had cut the sound. The bearded man at the front, the one with piercing grey eyes, looked from Sarah to the men standing around her. His gaze didn't waver, not even for a heartbeat. The younger of the 2 bikers beside him whispered something under his breath, but the older one raised his hand, silencing him. Then, in a voice that was low and steady, he said, "Step away from her." The men froze. One of them stammered, "Hey, we didn't mean nothing, just fooling around." But the look in that man's eyes could have cut steel. He took a step forward, and even though he didn't shout, every word carried the weight of thunder. "You laid your hands on her." Sarah's breath caught in her throat as the realization hit her like a wave. The man standing there, his beard silvered with time, his hands scarred and worn, was someone she hadn't seen in nearly 6 years. Her brother, Jake, the same brother who'd once promised her that no one would ever hurt her again. For a second, the world seemed to blur. The diner, the fear, the faces, all of it faded, and all she could see was the memory of 2 kids sitting on a porch, dreaming of better days. Jake had gone his way, into a world of roaring engines and long roads, while she'd tried to escape everything that came with it. But blood never forgets. Jake's men moved before the others could react. The one who'd ripped her shirt found himself shoved against the wall, his laughter dying in his throat. The room filled with tension, not violence, but something more powerful. Jake didn't need to throw a punch. His presence alone spoke for him. He leaned in close enough that the man could feel his breath when he said, "You don't touch women. Not here, not anywhere, not ever." The diner stayed silent, every person holding their breath. Even the coffee machine's steady hiss seemed to pause. When it was over, Jake turned to Sarah, his eyes softening for the first time. He took off his leather jacket and gently wrapped it around her shoulders. She wanted to say something, to thank him, to cry, to explain, but no words came. Her brother just gave a small nod, like he understood everything she couldn't say. Then he looked around the diner, his voice calm again. "Everyone okay?" Slowly, life trickled back into the room. A woman at the counter muttered something about calling the police, but Jake shook his head. "Already handled," he said, walking those men out the door like a storm passing through. When the door finally closed behind them, Sarah sat back down, her hands still trembling. The jacket smelled faintly of oil and smoke, but to her, it was the safest thing she'd ever felt. The days that followed changed everything. Word spread fast about what happened, about who she was, and who had come to her defense. People in town started looking at her differently, not with pity, but with respect. Some even apologized for looking away. And Sarah? She didn't hide anymore. She started wearing her brother's old angel pin on her apron at the diner, not to show off, but as a reminder, to herself and everyone else, that strength doesn't always come from fighting. Sometimes it comes from surviving, from getting up the next morning, from forgiving yourself for the times you were scared. Jake visited a few more times after that. They didn't talk much about the past, or the years lost between them. They didn't need to. The road had changed them both, but in that quiet diner under the shadow of the mountains, they found something that neither of them had realized they'd lost: family. And sometimes, that's all anyone really needs to heal. If this story touched your heart, if you believe that true strength comes from love, loyalty, and standing up for what's right, please like, share, and subscribe to Everyday Heroes. Let's remind the world that even in the darkest places, courage still shines. Special request: comment below with one word that describes what family means to you, because sometimes the people who protect us are the ones we least expect to show up when we need them most.